Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tang Men based on novel. So let's start. Once the greenish mist appeared, two figures stepped out from the veranda underneath the corridor. Xiao Hong, you're too sensitive. It could just be a cat or mouse. Why are you so suspicious of such a little noise? This courtyard's going to turn toxic from your corrosive poison ball. The person speaking was a relatively short evil master, who had an ash-grey face and a set of wide nostrils. Humph. Xiao Hong made a gesture with his fingers, and his triangular eyes darted around. As he snorted disdainfully, he even revealed two buck teeth. It's just called being prepared. Didn't the third elder praise me for how agile I was last time? Killing someone innocent is fine, but we can't let a guilty person off. Who cares if it's a mouse or cat? Mao Mao, you can't be this casual, either. If the third elder knew about this, you'd be whipped again. Nan Shuishui felt goosebumps rise as she heard these childish voices. She didn't make a move, as she was waiting for Huo Yuhao's signal. The evil soul masters in the room could threaten her mother's life, but the two outside were only four-ringed soul ancestors, which wasn't something that could threaten her. Huo Yuhao had already entered the room when the two evil soul ancestors had rushed out from the veranda. He simply didn't have any fear of being discovered due to his imitation. Nan Shuishui was imprisoned in the basement, and only two evil soul masters were stationed in the room above the basement. He couldn't give them the opportunity to kill her, and thus not only did he have to be careful, but he had to move like lightning once he made a move. After noiselessly arriving outside the room the two evil soul masters were in, the air around Huo Yuhao's body twisted slightly, as he released a gem-white soul ring. He had activated his spiritual interference domain. The two evil soul masters in the room were currently drinking wine. Although there were only two of them, a large array of dishes were placed on the table in front of them, and they were drinking merrily. I say brother, why do you have two heads? Two, what do you mean two? You've drank too much, you. Why are you so weak today? Use your soul power to flush out the alcohol. Bullshit. What's the point of drinking if I do that? I'll have a nice sleep later, after getting a bit dizzy. Recently, I've reached a bottleneck in my soul power, and I can't increase it anymore. It seems like I'll have to kill a few more people, and eat their hearts, to increase my blood chi. How disgusting. What's nice about a human heart? Human brains are the best. That soft and sticky taste. The evil soul master, who was indulging fully in his daydreams, was suddenly flabbergasted. That was because the person sitting in front of him suddenly had his head blown off. The soft and sticky brains splattered everywhere, and the brain juices that landed on him actually had that ever-familiar flavor he remembered. He used his finger to touch some of the brain juice that had landed on his face, then tasted it. It seems like I've drunk too much. Why does the brain juice in my dream taste so real? Ha, it's really delicious. I'm dreaming about eating a brain while drinking alcohol. Not bad, not bad. Why is it so cold? A hand that held a diamond-shaped crystal of ice landed on his neck. Right after that, this Soul King-ranked evil soul master followed his companion into death with a gentle crack. Due to Huo Yuhao's spiritual interference domain, they had not felt any undulations of soul power throughout the entire process. It was also why this brain-eating person thought that it was only a dream when the person sitting in front of him had his head blown apart. However, that had been real. Death was the only result for an evil soul king, who didn't specialize in spiritual force when facing the Eye of Destiny-enhanced spiritual shock. As for this other person, he was even drunk while Huo Yuhao's domain of perpetual ice was taking effect. His neck was directly crushed by the Ice Empress pincer. While Huo Yuhao was making a move, he gestured mentally at Nan Shuishui, who then used the power of annihilation to devastate everything in front of her. Within a few breaths, she had already charged right into the room. Yuhao, what about my mom? Nan Shuishui quickly walked over to Huo Yuhao, not even bothering to spare a glance at the corpses of the two evil soul masters. Huo Yuhao didn't utter a word. He walked over to the table they had been drinking at on, then tapped the ground with his right leg. With a crunch, a slab broke apart, revealing a pitch-black hole that had faint air currents flowing out. Your mom's down there. Go rescue her. You'll have to be quick though. I'll be waiting for you outside. With that, he turned around and went outside. Nan Shuishui couldn't be bothered to care about Huo Yuhao's somewhat strange expression, Without hesitation, she jumped into the basement. Although there were air currents coming from the basement, Nan Shuishui was astonished to discover once she landed that not only was the ventilation in this room pretty good, but it was abnormally clear and fresh, yet not too cold. Mom, in the next moment, she saw her mother. However, her eyes instantly widened, and she opened her mouth, astonished. The environment in the basement was far better than Nan Shuishui had thought before. From her point of view, her mother must have suffered a great crime while being held captive by the evil soul masters. However, what about reality? Not only was this basement extremely clean and fresh, but there was even a complete set of clean furniture. There were various types of fruits laid on the table. The ground even had a thick carpet covering it. Other than the heavy atmosphere present, it was practically a luxurious bedroom. Naturally, the reason why Nan Shuishui was astonished before wasn't because of the conditions of the room. Instead, it was because of her mother. Although Nan Shuishui looked somewhat pale, she was quite healthy. She was currently seated by the table eating fruit, and her eyes turned somewhat dull as she saw Nan Shuishui arrive. The only abnormal thing about her was that she was completely naked. There was a thin, silver chain on her right leg. Mom, Nan Shuishui's voice was clearly trembling. The fruit in Nan Shuishui's hand dropped to the table with a thud. Her face instantly paled, and she answered in a trembling voice, Shuishui. Nan Shuishui's eyes instantly became clear. With a sudden stride forward, she walked over to Nan Shuishui. Right after that, she bent down and unleashed the pinkish-red power of annihilation on the chain attached to her mother's feet. However, although this silver chain looked very thin, it was extremely sturdy. Even her power of annihilation wasn't able to damage it in any way. Nan Shuishui seemed to have sobered up somewhat as she quickly called out, Shuishui, Shuishui, why have you come? Quickly, go. It'll be troublesome if that person comes back. Nan Shuishui didn't look at her mother. Instead, her eyes were fixed on the chain in her hand. Mom, I'm here to rescue you. I can definitely break this chain. As she spoke, she raised her soul power to the maximum, causing the chain in her hands to glow pinkish red. However, the chain didn't move at all, and showed no signs of breaking. Nan Shuishui's hands were already starting to bleed. Her tears also began to fall down her cheeks in large drops. As her tears wildly surged forth, Nan Shuishui pounced into her mother's embrace and cried, Mom, Mom, you've suffered. Mom, I've come late. Mom. All sorts of feelings welled up in Nan Shuishui's heart as she hugged her daughter. She sighed, silly girl, it's not what you thought. Your mother is fine. Although that fellow destroyed my clothes, he didn't sully me. You've thought too deeply into it. Ah? Nan Shuishui raised her head, and she said with misty eyes, what happened, then? Nan Shuishui had a helpless look on her face as she said, I knew that fella many years ago. He was one of your father's love rivals when I was young. When I later married your father, he became an evil soul master in a moment of rage. However, he lost his manhood because of it. I haven't been sullied by him or anything during these few days. He's just destroyed my clothes. He comes to see me every day, and he does his best to take care of my everyday life. To be honest, I don't hate him. I even feel somewhat guilty. If it wasn't for me, he wouldn't have walked the path of an evil soul master. Nan Shuishui stared blankly at her mother. She'd never thought that something like this would have occurred to her mother in the past. Then what about these chains? Nan Shuishui asked with a depressed look on her face. Nan Shuishui laughed bitterly. I tried breaking them before he fed me that soul-eradicating powder. I couldn't even break it with my cultivation, so there's no need to talk about whether you can do it. You should go quickly. In any case, he definitely won't kill me. You should just leave this place safely before considering anything else. Oh, right. Give me a spare change of clothes. If he destroys them again, I'll just smack my head against a wall and die. Only then did Nan Shuishui come to her senses. She hurriedly took a set of spare clothes from her storage-type soul tool and helped dress her mother. The silver chain bound to her leg proved somewhat of a hindrance, however. Quickly, go. Nan Shuishui's expression immediately became much better after she was fully dressed. Nan Shuishui shook her head strongly and hugged her mother tightly. No, I'm not going. I was only able to find you after much difficulty, so how can I just leave like this? I'll definitely rescue you. Oh, right. Even if I can't do it, that fellow might be able to. Yuhao, quickly come down now. The lock on my mother's leg won't open. After hearing Nan Shuishui's cry, Huo Yuhao re-entered the room and leapt down into the basement. Nan Shuishui nodded softly after seeing him. However, a smidge of red instantly appeared on Nan Shuishui's charming face as she stared at him. At this moment, she finally understood why Huo Yuhao didn't follow her down earlier. He must have known beforehand that her mother was naked via his spiritual detection. This fellow. Huo Yuhao said respectfully, "Hello, Senior Nan." Nan Shuishui sighed softly. "How can you risk your lives like this? Sunrise City is filled with people from the Sun Moon Empire, and there are even people from the Holy Ghost Church. It's too dangerous. Quickly, go. You two won't be able to break this chain on my leg." Huo Yuhao took the chain from Nan Shuishui and looked it over for a few moments. After that, he wiped his forehead with his right hand and a jade-green light appeared in his palm. With a flash of jade-green light, the link instantly snapped clean off. Before Nan Shuishui could even finish speaking, her eyes widened. Huo Yuhao tugged the chain and quickly walked over to the ring on the wall it was connected to. The jade light in his hand flashed once again, cutting the ring apart. He immediately put the chain away in his storage-type soul tool. This, Nan Shuishui was completely stunned. She had personally tried breaking this chain using her cultivation as an 8-ringed soul doluo, along with the power of annihilation, and had failed to so. However, Huo Yuhao was able to break it with no difficulty at all. This was simply inconceivable. "Senior, your soul power was limited by the soul eradicating powder, right? Eat this first," Huo Yuhao said as he passed the antidote he had prepared to Nan Shuishui. Nan Shuishui hurriedly took it for her mother and placed it in her mouth. Only then was Nan Shuishui able to react. Without even asking Huo Yuhao how he did it, she said in a low voice, "Let's go." Leaving this place was the best thing that could happen to them. However, she did not expect it to be easy. Nan Shuishui hunched forward slightly to carry her mother. With one leap, she jumped out of the basement. The antidote needed time to take effect. The soul eradicating powder was powerful, and it was impossible for Nan Shuishui to regain her powers in such a short period of time. Huo Yuhao followed them out of the cellar. The secret behind why he was able to break the silver chains was naturally his life guardian blade. Life gold was able to devour the life energy of every solid object. It had even been able to gradually destroy the large door of the underground storage room in Radiant City. While the chain was strong, there was nothing it could do when faced with its greatest opponent. After they rescued Nan Shuishui, Huo Yuhao felt an immense sense of relief. Now was not the best time to leave the city, as it was surely completely controlled by soldiers from the Sun Moon Empire. There was also a Beast Lord-ranked Soul Engineer Legion around, too. Aerial surveillance soul tools, no doubt, covered the skies above Sunrise City once again. After so many battles, both Huo Yuhao's soul power and spiritual power were greatly depleted. The best course of action now was to hide. Then, when the chance presented itself, they could sneak out of the city. With Nan Shuishui, a soul doluo around, they had a good chance of breaking out. "Where do we go now?" Nan Shuishui asked Huo Yuhao in a low voice. Since he was using his imitation, they had no fear of being detected by aerial surveillance soul tools. Huo Yuhao said, "We'll go back to the hotel first. Fengling is still there. While it's close to the southern part of the city, we have yet to be exposed. We'll go back to rest first. After Auntie has regained her strength, we'll find another way to leave." "All right, I'll listen to you." Huo Yuhao had fulfilled his promise and helped her save her mother. Any unhappiness Nan Shuishui had had with Huo Yuhao before this was completely wiped clean. All that remained was respect and shame. She suddenly realized that he was able to provide her with a strong sense of security. She gradually understood how Yi Gai's curiosity eventually left her infatuated with Huo Yuhao. He's really exceptional, and he's mature beyond his age. Nan Shuishui, lying on her daughter's back, said nothing. The antidote started to kick in, and she started to gather her soul power once more. Right now, Sunrise City was danger-ridden. Nothing was more important than regaining her soul power. Indeed, there were soldiers everywhere in the city. Every single street was being monitored very closely. The soldiers used sound-amplifying soul tools to issue orders, instructing all civilians not to leave their homes. They then used various types of surveillance soul tools to search each and every building. In the sky, One could see blue dots of light flashing by frequently. This indicated the presence of the Evil Eye Tyrant Soul Engineer Legion. Huo Yuhao stood in front. He unleashed his imitation, and was able to walk right by the waves of soldiers, as he quickly walked in the direction of the hotel. As he walked, he whispered to Nan Shuishui, "Don't rush to return later. We should observe our surroundings. If the hotel is being searched, they will have found Feng Ling. I don't know what they will make of him. I just hope that they have not yet searched that place." Nan Shuishui nodded and said, "That guy is so dumb. What if he is discovered?" Huo Yuhao frowned and said, "Let's see the situation first. If we can save him, we should save him. He's a poor sod." Nan Shuishui's mouth twitched as she said, "I heard third senior brother say that he's a gangster. He probably did many bad things before. This is his comeuppance." Huo Yuhao turned to look at her and said, "Stop being so harsh. He's already in such a sorry state." Nan Shuishui stuck out her tongue and said, "Fine, fine, I'll listen to you." Huo Yuhao smiled slightly and quickened his pace. After they saved Nan Shuishui, Nan Shuishui acted much more mature. After they navigated their way through many alleys and back streets, avoiding many patrolling soldiers in the process, they finally saw their hotel. There were no soldiers patrolling the front of the hotel. The alleys all seemed very quiet. Huo Yuhao suddenly felt his forehead turning hot. His eye of destiny seemed to have shivered. His mind shook, and he deployed his spiritual detection like a fisherman casting his net, enveloping everything within a 500-meter radius. To Huo Yuhao, his spiritual detection was more useful than his eyes. It had helped him turn the tides of countless battles. When his eye of destiny trembled, it seemed to be warning him. However, after he used his spiritual detection, he discovered nothing. Everything seemed normal. When Nan Shuishui saw him stop, she nudged him and asked, "What's wrong? Is everything all right?" Huo Yuhao shook his head and said, "Let's go. We'll return to the hotel to see if Feng Ling is still there." As he said that, he and Nan Shuishui flipped over a wall to enter the hotel. For safety, he continued to us his imitation to conceal himself as he slipped into the hotel. Quickly, he walked to the room where Feng Ling had been. With his spiritual detection, Huo Yuhao could sense that Feng Ling was still in his room, alive. He slowly pushed the door open, and just as expected, Feng Ling lay on the bed like before. He was curled up, and seemed to be mumbling something. Nan Shuishui sighed in relief as she said, "It appears that they have yet to search this place. Our luck isn't bad. Yuhao, why don't we hide him? Let's bring him out of the hotel first. What if the soldiers find him here?" Huo Yuhao appeared to not have heard Nan Shuishui's words. He stood there and he looked straight ahead. He touched his forehead with his right hand. Between his brows, his eye of destiny was shaking rapidly. This was the first time he had encountered something like this. The pressure he felt made him deeply uncomfortable. "No, let's go," Huo Yuhao said as he suddenly pulled Nan Shuishui. He did not even let her put Nan Shuishui down as he ran out of the room with her. The moment he ran out the door, a huge rumble could be heard. This terrifying shockwave was accompanied by a terrifying rain of carnage. Despite Huo Yuhao's quick reflexes, the huge energy still hit him from behind. His heart ran cold. He knew that he was being ambushed. Nan Shuishui asked confusedly, "What's going on?" The more dangerous the situation, the calmer Huo Yuhao was. He grabbed Nan Shuishui with his right hand as he said in a low voice, "Flying-type soul tool." At the same time, he maximized his spiritual power. He unleashed his spiritual interference and imitation. Nan Shuishui was still carrying Nan Shuishui. While she wanted to deploy her flying-type soul tool, her hands could only fumble at it clumsily. At this moment, Huo Yuhao had already released his flying-type soul tool. At this moment, he did not care about whether his actions were appropriate anymore. He grabbed her by the waist as his flying-type soul tool propelled him upward. He punched the ceiling with his hands. Boom. Boom. 2 explosions rang out. 2 holes appeared in the ceiling. Instantly, one could see that a huge swathe of light had covered the sky outside. The very air trembled. No matter how dumb Nan Shuishui was, she now understood the severity of the situation. She did not struggle, but instead used her soul power to try and make her mother and herself lighter. Huo Yuhao's embrace was warm and brimmed with masculinity. The light outside flashed. A layer of golden light started to shine from Huo Yuhao's body as he used his invincible barrier. With his spiritual interference domain, imitation, and invincible barrier, Huo Yuhao was completely protected and concealed. His butterfly wings spewed out light as he flew out of one of the two holes as fast as he could. Huo Yuhao was clear that this was his only chance. They were definitely surrounded. As to why, he had an inkling. It definitely had something to do with Feng Ling, who had been blown apart. Go back, a raspy old voice said in mid-air. With that, Huo Yuhao felt like a moth who had flown into a huge net as something forcibly blocked his ascent. He could not go back. No way. Huo Yuhao was clear that if his next attack was blocked, there would be no chance of escape. He lashed out with his right fist, and his eyes brimmed with sadness and longing. It was the fist of remembrance, a fist which contained a surging feeling of remembrance. Boom. A layer of white light appeared after being struck by this punch. A shadow materialized outside the screen of light. When he saw this person, the look of longing in Huo Yuhao's eyes faded. Nan Shuishui, who was on Nan Shuishui's back, recoiled forcefully. This was because the person who was now looking down on them from outside the barrier was none other than the third elder from the Holy Ghost Church. He was also Nan Shuishui's former lover, who had imprisoned her. The sky was completely sealed, so their only chance of escape was through the ground. They only stood a chance if they entered the city and exploited the complex geography and messy situation to their advantage. At the same time, Huo Yuhao had to rely on his spiritual interference domain and imitation. However, the third elder had reacted too quickly and killed off their hope. Huo Yuhao couldn't tell what soul tool the third elder was using. However, the tremendous suppression he was under caused him to become completely immobilized as he unleashed his domain of perpetual ice. The difference in their abilities was simply too huge. Even though his soul power was already at rank 60, he was still technically a soul king, because of the number of soul rings he had. The gap between a soul king and titled Doluor, and a class 6 and class 9 soul engineer, was undoubtedly too big for him to make up the difference. He could sense that his opponent didn't intend to kill the three of them, he wanted to capture them alive. That was likely because of Nan Shuishui and Nan Shuishui, the third elder couldn't bear to kill them. Could Huo Yuhao only find an opportunity to escape after being captured? Huo Yuhao still had a few trump cards that he hadn't used yet. However, these trump cards seemed a little too useless against a class 9 soul engineer. What should he do? While he was normally very adaptable, he couldn't think of a way to free himself. The image that he had formed using his imitation had disappeared, and Wu Yu was staring at him with completely red eyes. She said to the third elder coldly, "I want him alive. I want to make him my human puppet, and whip him every day. I want to torture him until it feels worse than death, so as to avenge my elder sister." Wu Yu's voice was very sharp. Huo Yuhao could hear her words clearly, and his heart sank when he heard them. He wasn't afraid of death. However, his life was going to be a living hell if he landed in the same state as Feng Ling. Originally, he didn't want to take any chances, and wanted to conserve his abilities before trying to escape later on. However, he became more determined to escape after hearing Wu Yu's words. No matter what, he couldn't land in their hands. He would rather die than be captured. He turned to the northeast and looked into the sky. A trace of blue appeared in the pitch-black sky far away, and he seemed to see Wang Donger's sleeping figure. "Donger, I'm sorry. I might not be able to wait until you wake up. Do you know how much I miss you now? Forget it, just let me die. Even if I die, I'll bring my yearning for you along." As he thought until here, Huo Yuhao's eyes brightened. His eyes turned clearer, and a sense of yearning spread from him. His willpower soared, and golden light emanated from his body, illuminating his pitch-black surroundings. The third and fourth elders, as well as Wu Yu, were all some of the strongest individuals around. They immediately reacted when they saw the changes Huo Yuhao was experiencing. The third elder waved his hand, "Everyone, retreat." The soul engineers from the Evil Eye Tyrant Soul Engineer Legion weren't up to such an high-level fight, unless they were willing to sacrifice their lives to destroy Huo Yuhao. He looks like he's only slightly past 20, but why is his willpower so strong? How did he manage to reach such a cultivation? Even Wu Yun died at his hands. Even with the third and fourth elders' cultivations, they were still very serious when they sensed the strength of Huo Yuhao's spiritual cultivation. It wasn't difficult for them to kill him, but it would be tedious for them to capture him alive. They were very curious about him, too. Whether it was his soul skills, like imitation and spiritual interference, his cultivation, or his abnormal spiritual power, he was the kind of research subject that the Holy Ghost Church liked. If they tried to destroy him, Nan Shuishui and Nan Shuishui were unlikely to escape the repercussions. While the third elder sounded very unfeeling, he would have simply attacked them if he no longer had feelings for Nan Shuishui. Why would he have waited until now? At this point, another streak of golden light that resonated with Huo Yuhao's strong willpower shone far away in the east. Furthermore, this streak of golden light seemed even brighter. It was like the sun rising in the east. There was a dominant aura about it as it rose into the sky. Even Huo Yuhao was stunned when he saw this. This was. The Holy Ghost Church didn't know, but he was clearly aware of the fact that he had no reinforcements. They were the only remaining ones on this rescue mission. Could it be Sister Xiaodao? However, it isn't possible for her to release a streak of golden light. That streak of golden light came very suddenly and forcefully, and soon filled the entire sky. Deafening dragon roars also reverberated across the sky, and the sky turned bright gold. Oh? Huo Yuhao and the other two were already under the control of the lightning net. In the third elder's opinion, Huo Yuhao couldn't possibly escape given his cultivation. That was why both him and the fourth elder turned their attention to the sudden change occurring far away. After all, they didn't know how many people had come with Huo Yuhao, and how many strong individuals there were. Although Wu Yu had obtained some information from Feng Ling was in an unstable mental state. It was difficult to tell how credible he was. It was just like how she didn't know what time the Tang sect was supposed to make their move. The soul engineers from the Evil Eye Tyrant Soul Engineer Legion were indeed well trained. Even though their commander wasn't around, they still came up with a targeted response immediately. Glaring beams of lights were fired from the area where all the soul tools were deployed, forming a blue net of death that reached towards the streak of golden light coming from afar. The 100 soul engineers in the air also adopted a new formation to target the incoming streak of golden light. 30 of them split into groups of 5, and each group was in charge of helming a huge soul tool. These soul tools seemed like pentagrams, and there were metal poles extending from its corners. Every pole was lifted on a soul engineer's shoulder, while the center contained a ball-like entity that resembled an eye. Dark blue light shone above this ball-like entity, and intense soul power undulations poured from it. The incoming streak of golden light clashed with this blue net. However, the shocking thing was that no explosion rang out. The streak of golden light was quickly dissipated by the net, and converted into spots of golden light that scattered in mid-air. What? Everyone from the Sun Moon Empire was stunned when they heard how loud the thunder was, but saw how little rain there was. This video will end here. Not only that, but blue figures also appeared outside the light barrier, surrounding Huo Yuhao and the three of them. Then the fourth elder appeared, and a group of people clad in black appeared behind the third elder. Trapped. After his body rebounded from the light barrier, Huo Yuhao did not use his 3 ultimate Haodong skills anymore. Those were last resort moves. Once he used them all, he could no longer control his emotions. If that happened, how could he leave with Nan Shuishui and Nan Shuishui? He stopped using his imitation, revealing the 3 of them. The soul engineers from the Evil Eye Tyrant Soul Engineer Legion all wielded a soul tool each. They aimed their soul tools at Huo Yuhao and his companions. With just one order, they would open fire at them. On the ground, a bunch of carefully positioned soul tools started to become visible. Powerful soul power fluctuations were everywhere. This was a truly well-planned trap. The third elder looked at Nan Shuishui before he turned his gaze to Huo Yuhao. He clapped his hands lightly and said, "You're skillful indeed, and full of tricks and schemes. With just a few of you, you actually dared to mount a rescue mission, which succeeded. I can't help but admire you. At your age, I was still a clueless youth. If I had half of your powers, no one would have been able to steal my lover from me." When he said that last bit, he could not help but look at Nan Shuishui. Nan Shuishui wore a heavy expression on her face. She sighed and said, "They're still kids. Let them go. I'll return with you. I'll do whatever you want me to. You'll do whatever I ask you to. What can you do for me?" Ha 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 ha, the third elder laughed shrilly. "Had this been 25 years ago, how happy I would have been to hear you say that. However, it's too late now. This should be your daughter, right? Look, she resembles you so much. Do you think you have a chance of leaving me anymore?" I can't do anything to you, but I won't let you leave me. Don't worry, I won't kill you or your daughter. If I kill her, you'll be sad. I'll let her accompany you. As for this bastard here, I can't decide his fate. Wu Yu, do you have anything you want to say? They are the butchers, and I'm the meat. Thought Huo Yuhao. He could not help but despair. Despite his many calculations, he had still slipped up. He knew that he had been exposed because of Feng Ling, who had died from the explosion. He did not hate Feng Ling, because he was controlled by the evil soul masters. No matter how resolute he was, however, Huo Yuhao could not help but lose hope in this situation. He was facing two evil titled Doluor, with one of them being a Class 9 Soul Engineer. Furthermore, there was a Beast Lord rank Soul Engineer Legion with hundreds of men nearby, as well as the Soul Tools, which had long been placed in position underneath him. There was no escape. Wu Yu, who was clad in a huge cloak, floated up next to the third elder and asked Huo Yuhao sharply, "You killed my sister?" "Your sister?" Huo Yuhao looked at her suspiciously. Wu Yu freed her head from the cloak. When Huo Yuhao saw the pale, familiar face with its blood-red eyes, he felt his heart tremble. His questions were finally answered. They had the same vengeance-filled faces and blood-red eyes. Here was another one who possessed the spirit of vengeance. "You are twin sisters, right?" Huo Yuhao asked bitterly. "That's right. Did you kill my sister?" "Why? Why? You're so weak, how could you have killed my sister?" Wu Yu shrieked hysterically. Huo Yuhao sighed and said, "Your sister died peacefully." "That's right, I killed her. However, to her, death was the best release. Both of you possess a spirit of vengeance, which is immensely strong. However, your lives are both cursed. Is this feeling good? Your sister died, because she sensed my love for my lover. My emotions destroyed her spirit of vengeance, and hence, she died. Actually, to her, death was a form of purification and elevation." As he spoke, Huo Yuhao's eyes shone brightly, and an image appeared in front of Wu Yu. There were too many things he could do with his imitation. The Haodong palm, the palm that would last eternally, was clearly revealed in that image. At this moment, the weather changed, and even the third elder was moved. Wu Yun wore a final smile on her face after being struck by Huo Yuhao's Haodong palm. Her bloodshot eyes turned clear again, and she died a glad woman. Wu Yu was stunned when she saw this scene. "Thank you. Remembrance is a magical thing. I miss my mommy and daddy. Why did you have to die so early? Why didn't you protect me? Why did you let that fatso abuse me and leave me humiliated in front of countless people in that cold basement? They destroyed my body under the instigation of that fatso, ravaging my heart and staining my spirit. I was only 15. Hatred kept me alive and enhanced my spirit to another level. My spirit of vengeance was awakened as a result. I hate those greedy and lecherous men, and I hate that fatso who tore me to pieces. I want to slaughter them, but I'm in so much pain. Am I finally being released? You let me see the light, sense what remembrance is, and witness a love that's yet to appear in my spirit. It seems like not everything in this world is dirty. There are still pure and clean things. Thank you for letting me sense the intense love you have for that unknown person. You cleansed my heart, and let me know what release is. Thank you, I'm very happy. While there were many people around, Wu Yun's voice still sounded very clear on this abnormally quiet night. To the soul engineers of the Evil Eye Tyrant Soul Engineer Legion, this mournful voice only moved them. However, the third and fourth elders, as well as Wu Yu, were all astonished by Wu Yun's words. Wu Yu was even trembling uncontrollably, and she muttered to herself, elder sister, how could you bear to leave me alone? Trying to escape." The third elder shouted as he witnessed this scene. He smacked his right hand down, and a bluish-black lightning dragon instantly surfaced from his arm. Huo Yuhao, Nan Shuishui and Nan Shuishui all turned into bubbles and disappeared, while this lightning dragon charged downwards immediately. It unleashed a lightning net that engulfed a huge plot of space. The entire air seemed to be suffused with a smell that resembled ultraviolet rays coming from sunlight on a bright day. Amidst this lightning net, 3 sorry figures appeared slightly more than 100 meters away from where Huo Yuhao and the other 2 had disappeared earlier. Huo Yuhao released intense azure lights from his body, which resisted the strong lightning that was coming towards him. However, he still felt his body turning numb. This was the strength of a Class 9 Soul Engineer. He had managed to make the three of them reappear easily. As the only successful person to have completed the ultimate soldier plan, Huo Yuhao had no intention of giving up, even though he was in a precarious situation right now. He had almost succeeded in using his imitation to confuse his opponents, which included two title Doluor and escape.